welcome to Crawford Lake. Well, we haven't actually reached the lake yet. This is just the path leading us to the lake, so we'll see that shortly. So I just wanted to begin by saying that this place is really near and dear to my heart because I worked at a summer camp called OISE of the Woods, and we would bring our campers on little day trips here. So I learned a lot about this trail as I was obligated to inform the campers and kind of give them a really fun experience here. So just for starters, this trail has a lot of endangered species on it. Well, there are statues of the endangered species. So here to my left is actually a monarch butterfly. So I would bring my campers over to this statue as we were beginning the path, and I would first ask them if they knew what it was, and then we would kind of go into endangered species. So I'd ask them what an endangered species is and why they think that it has become endangered and why we see so few of them in our environment today. So same as my campers, I could bring my students in my class here and go on the topic of endangered species. So for monarch butterflies specifically, I would talk about the human impact of climate change and how increased levels of CO2 has really impacted our monarch butterflies. So for example, the caterpillars that turn into monarch butterflies typically eat milkweed, and the increased levels of CO2 in our atmosphere has made this milkweed toxic. So of course, when these caterpillars are eating this, it might kill them off, which is what is creating monarch butterflies to become endangered. So further on this trail, we also have some other endangered species that I would show to my students as well, such as over here on the right, there's the gray wolf. So as I was mentioning about climate change and pollution and human interference, most of these endangered species on this path have been interfered by humans, and I really would want my students to recognize the impact that we truly have and how pollution and littering really has a strong impact on our creatures, and that we need to really be mindful of this, especially when we're walking in nature, not to be throwing our garbage on the floor and that sort of thing, and really get them to recognize that their actions does have a very strong impact on our creatures in our society. And if we are mindful of this, then hopefully we can decrease the amount of species that are endangered. As I was mentioning before, another endangered species is the gray wolf. And part of our grade 7 curriculum discusses how abiotic and biotic elements interact with each other. And as I was mentioning before, the human impact can really affect the interaction between both living and non-living things, such as if humans are creating more pollution and more CO2 in the air and our climate temperatures are increasing, this can really impact our biotic elements, such as the animals that live in our environment. As I'm walking along the trail, you can see that there's more statues of the endangered species, such as the salamander over here, and if we continue walking down there, there's a couple more as well. Welcome to Crawford Lake. So Crawford Lake is known as a meromictic lake. So I'd always ask my students, what is a meromictic lake? And I would explain to them that meromictic basically means that the lake is very small in surface area. As you can tell, it doesn't really look like a super huge lake. However, it's very deep. So this lake in particular is actually 23 meters deep, and it's one of 10 meromictic lakes in Canada. So essentially what this means is that the layers of the lake don't intermix, whereas in like a normal lake, they typically all mix together. So what this means and how this impacts our creatures and things that are in the water is that at the very bottom, so the deepest point of the lake, there's actually no oxygen down there. Meaning that if you were to say like, toss in an apple today, thousands of years from now, the apple would not have decomposed as it's not exposed to oxygen. So additionally, what this means for our creatures is that at the very bottom of the lake, since there's no oxygen, only our anaerobic creatures that have adapted to living in that kind of environment will be able to survive. I also want to bring your attention to this sign here. So in order to properly protect and preserve this kind of rare lake, we want to make sure that we aren't throwing any litter or garbage in there, we're not swimming, we're not boating, we're not fishing, and we're not allowing our pets and animals to freely roam in the water. So at Crawford Lake, there's this boardwalk, that I would take my campers on, and it kind of goes around the lake, and it's just like really great because they feel as though they're really immersed in nature, and there's a lot of different kinds of trees around. This one in particular, students would find really cool. We named it Mr. Twister. So we talk about that, and it's kind of just a great way for them to kind of like de-stress and really become immersed with nature, as I was saying. So I just wanted to finish my video off by saying that Crawford Lake also has the opportunity for students to go inside of these longhouses, which were where some of the Indigenous people, specifically the Wendats, live. So this connects well to like social studies, and as much as it's not part of the science curriculum, it is a really good thing for them to learn here as well. So we could do the trail as well as come to the longhouses as well. So it'd be a really great field trip, I think, for the students. Thanks for visiting Crawford Lake with me, one of the Halton parks.